Welcome back to another episode of Reflect Live, the podcast where stories come to life and hearts are opened. I am your host, Michelle. Here in Reflect Live, we offer a platform for people from all walks of life to share their experiences, their triumphs, and their challenges. It's a space where people thrive and connections are made through the power of storytelling. And today we have something truly special in store for you. So grab your favorite beverage, find a cozy spot, and let's dive into another episode of Reflect Live. Get ready to be inspired, moved, and maybe even crack a smile or two. This is Reflect Live with Michelle. Welcome back to another episode of Reflect Live, the podcast where stories come to life and hearts are opened. I am your host, Michelle. Here in Reflect Live, we offer a platform for people from all walks of life to share their experiences, their triumphs, and their challenges. It's a space where people thrive and connections are made through the power of storytelling. And today we have something truly special in store for you. So grab your favorite beverage, find a cozy spot, and let's dive into another episode of Reflect Live. Get ready to be inspired, moved, and maybe even crack a smile or two. This is Reflect Live with Michelle. You've reached Michelle, host of Reflect Live podcast. And my guest today is Michelle Steiner. Welcome, Michelle.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's great. So tell everybody that's listening a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Michelle Steiner. I live in Pennsylvania with my husband, Ron, and our two cats, Jack and Sparrow. I work in a school as a paraeducator with students who have disabilities and some who don't. This year, I'm working with sixth graders. And I also have a blog. I'm also a disability writer, speaker, and photographer. I have a blog called Michelle's Mission where I write about life with a learning disability. And I have a little store where I feature some of my art as well. And I have a learning disability myself. I have a learning disability in math, dyscalculia. I have visual perception issues, and I have limited hand dexterity in both of my hands.
Really? So can you tell a little bit about your disability and how you didn't let it hinder you and the success that you have?
Sure. Well, I was diagnosed with having a learning disability whenever I was in kindergarten, so it became a way of life for me. In the very beginning, it was very difficult. I can just remember being really frustrated and just wanting to learn like everybody else, and I just wanted it to go away. But what I found to be really successful for me is to focus on what I could do and not to try to focus on things that I can't do. Because when I focus on things that I can't do, I get really frustrated and I'm upset. But when I focus on the things that I'm really good at, such as reading and writing and photography, those things have really helped. And another thing that has really helped too is having the right supports and programs in place. When I'm in school, I need to have extended test time. And I have to avoid programs that involve a lot of math and a lot of science. That is not going to help me out very much. And I need to do a lot of that. After school, though, in my everyday life now, I have to do things such as be able to just find different strategies for things that work. For example, I cannot open up certain things in the kitchen, so I need to use a bottle opener. I have an electric can opener because I can't figure out how to open up using a manual one. I also need to, if I'm at the store and it's always a surprise when I go to the register. So sometimes what I'll do is if I have $20, I can visualize the money going where it's supposed to. So that gives me a visual. But if you give me a credit card or a debit card, it's more of an abstract concept. I have a tip calculator that I can do if I'm at a restaurant and I want to know how much to tip somebody at the end. And I have a wonderful support system. My husband is able to take me to work, and I have a sweet coworker who's able to give me a ride home every day. And I also am able to drive because of my disability. And I also live very close to places, so I'm able to walk to where I need to go. And sometimes that is where I get to take my photography, because I get a chance to notice those details because I'm not sitting in the driver's seat.
Yes, and I want to, we'll share your website for some of your pictures on your website in just a minute. But let's go back to when you were saying that when you were in kindergarten, how did someone tell you that you were different? Did you just feel different? How did you get to know?
Right. Well, my parents were really open and honest with me, and I think that made all the difference, because my kindergarten teacher noticed, and she told them, and they consented to having me tested for one. And my mom and dad told me that I have a learning disability and that I learn differently. And hearing that was really powerful for me, because a lot of the information that my peers were giving wasn't accurate. Some of them were telling me that I wasn't smart, or there was
like your kindergarten peers, like kids were making fun of you type of thing?
It started out at a very young age. And a lot of it too, maybe wasn't always making fun of me, but I didn't know how to socialize a lot with other kids from the very start, because I was an only child for 13 years. So I had that going on as well. But a lot of the bullying started at a very young age. And another reason that was when I had to repeat kindergarten, again, go to a different school. And it was a very small conservative school district where everybody knew everybody's business. People could see that I went to learning support, and I couldn't hide that. And in the classroom, a lot of my peers saw that I was struggling.
Yeah. Wow. And did you move school systems because of the bullying, or did you just move?
Nope. Stayed in the same school system for all 12 years. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
What did help, though, was whenever I was a teenager and it got even worse and the groups became more defined, I started to hang out with some kids who went from a neighboring school district, and there was a faith-based art program. And I was able to be involved in stuff with other teenagers that they had similar interests that I did. I wrote for the newsletter, and I had acceptance. I could shed that reputation that followed me since I was in kindergarten of being the outcast. And I found out that other people had disabilities too. And it was just amazing. And and what happened after that group stopped meeting, I found an adult writing group with people that were in their 20s, some were in their 30s. And to this day, we still meet 30 some years later, once a month. Yeah, we're in each other's lives, and they got to see me grow, not only as a writer, but as a person as well. So that made it a lot easier when I went into school and maybe somebody wasn't very nice to me, or somebody didn't invite me somewhere. I was like, well, I'm going out with my friends who are a little bit older than me. And that made it a lot easier.
Yeah, I bet. If someone's going through the same thing, maybe it is they do have a disability, or maybe some kind of bullying. How did you get through a day? Because if you're constantly being bullied, that has to get at you, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually, and stuff. Get through it.
A lot of the ways I got through it was writing and reading. That was a big thing because I love to write. And when I had a bad day, I could go in my journal, and that was my place where I could use my voice to express myself. It was freeing for me because there was maybe so much I didn't want to tell my peers, or there was all that stigma. Oh, you don't want anyone to know that you have a disability, and you don't want to say anything, or I don't feel that I'm strong enough to stand up to somebody. But when I was writing my stories, and I had my voice, and that voice just developed as I got older, because I started to let people, rather than maybe face a lot of people or things that I didn't like whenever I was younger, I started to give my characters voices and things I wanted to say to somebody, but I just couldn't do that. But in my writing, I could. And sometimes that's my inspiration for a lot of it. And reading helped too, because I could get lost in a story of reading one or writing. And that was also one of the first things they knew that I was good at. My dad found a story about a dinosaur that I wrote whenever I was in second or third grade. And before that, he said, "This is really good." And before that, I didn't think I could do anything. I didn't think I was smart. And when I finally had that encouragement from my dad, that just set that in motion to start the writing. And it just gave me that voice from that point on.
So he's the one that inspired you to be on this path?
Yes. Yeah,
That
a great influence with my parents. Yep.
that is so great. And did a teacher or anything influence you?
I can remember I had learning support. There was a student teacher, and she told me that I could go to college with having a disability. And when I heard this, I thought, oh, that's not possible. I even had teachers before that said I couldn't do it. But she said, you know how to study. And I said, well, I have this disability and I don't know if I can handle the classes. And she said that there are other students that have disabilities on campus. They're taking classes and they're getting support services. And she said, you know how to study. You can do this. And that was the voice that I carried with me when I went to college.
And you have your degree?
I do. I have an associate's degree in early childhood education, and I also have a bachelor's degree in community programming for Americans with disabilities. And I was told by a psychiatrist that I was most likely not going to go beyond community college. And I was told by other professionals that I would have really limited job choices. And it wasn't always an easy experience. I faced a lot of stigma from people on campus with using disability services. Some people thought they were cheating, and it took a while to find the right program. I also had to mature a little bit. I had to take that little break in between school from going from community college to working and living out on my own and getting some maturity. And then when I had to move back in with my parents for financial reasons, that's when I was ready to go to university. I found the perfect program that had that least amount of math and science possible and had disability accommodations. And at that point, I didn't really care as much on what people thought of me. I knew I had to silence that voice about using those services. And once I did it, I thrived. I was able to make Dean's List for a semester and graduate. And that just was one of the most healing things I've ever done.
Sure. That's great. That is awesome. What is it about math and science?
I have a hard time with how numbers work. I don't reverse numbers or letters, but it's really hard for me just to know. I get lost in the steps of the problem. And that's why even using a calculator isn't very helpful for me. I can put the numbers in, but if I mess up on a step of the problem, I get it wrong. And I just don't understand. You have to know how to use it. You just can't put random numbers in. You really need to know how to do formulas. I'm also not able to read the face of a clock, an analog one. I can read the face of a digital watch, but whenever I look at an analog clock, I can see the numbers. I can see the big hand, the little hand, and the all the other little dashes on there, but I just can't be able to tell you what time it is. And it also affects things such as east, south, and west. I can't tell you my directions, and I confuse my left from my right. And there's a lot with that. And I cannot memorize all my math, all my addition, subtraction, or multiplication facts. I know some of them, but if you'd ask me a couple random ones, I can't be sure to give you an accurate answer. And some of the symptoms of having dyscalculia play on other things, like with the right-left confusion. And it all makes sense why certain things like driving just aren't a possibility for me.
Can you explain what dyscalculia is?
Sure. That is the math learning disability. If you would compare somebody that has dyslexia, which a lot of people are familiar with, that's a reading disability where people have problems with language and reading things. I'm a good reader. I maybe struggle with a little bit of reading comprehension. That was something that was difficult, especially when I was younger, but I can read really well. I have high verbal skills and I'm pretty good with writing, but my math is very low in comparison to my English. And I just struggle with how numbers work.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
The disability. And never interesting. You're teaching me something I've never.
Awesome.
And it's a blessing that, that you have a gift in other areas,
Yes.
like your photography. Let me share my screen really quick and show our listeners some of your beautiful artwork. Okay, tell us about this picture.
Those are some pink peonies of some of them I took. I love peonies. I do have, these aren't from my garden, but I do have some pink ones that are growing that my grandfather planted, the hot pink ones. So I'm excited to see those coming up in the spring.
So pretty. Look at that.
Thank you.
So pretty. Yeah. Now,
These
are these for sale, or are they
yes,
just?
people can purchase them. Yep, I have some that are for sale in my store. And I have some hot pink lilies. I really loved. I took that a
That's
few years
pretty.
ago, and thank you. I just fell in love with the lilies, and I take a lot of pictures when I'm on my walks.
Mm-hmm.
This picture was from one of the in my neighborhood around around summertime, and it was just I loved all the different the blazing stars and the daisies and the different flowers, and I got that chance to see it when I was on a walk.
That is so great.
And these are the lilacs that that are in my yard that'll come up around May, possibly at the end of April. And we ended up getting that plant off of the clearance section, I think at Lowe's or Home Depot, and it just bloomed. And lilacs are one of my favorite flowers. That is a picture of a moth that I found when I was running errands, and it was on the sidewalk. And I just thought, oh, look at all the different details that it had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So then let's see, your journal notebooks. Did you make these?
I did. I made those journal and notebooks. Yep. I had a butterfly. I'm into butterflies. That's one of my favorite things. And the house next door, they have these beautiful flowers that bloom, and the butterflies love them. And our neighbor, his design was so that the dogs wouldn't go in his yard, but it turns out to be an extra thing with the butterflies coming. I always love that. And then I took a picture of some dahlias. I love dahlias. Those are one of my favorite flowers.
That's
So I have those.
And you have a mug.
I have a mug that has some different designs on that with some flowers and one of the butterfly ones.
That's really pretty.
Thank you.
Let's see here. So here's some prints that you have.
Yeah, some prints that I have. The first one was from the Chicago Botanical Garden. We got a chance to visit that a few years ago whenever we were on a trip. My husband and I like to go on trips and visit botanical gardens and just different places that we like to go. And yeah, with flowers, that's always a passion of mine. And I get a chance to see a lot of them.
Butterfly and bunny. That's pretty.
Thank you. That was at Craniacs. It's a store. They have Christmas, and then they have a display at Christmas, and then they have an Easter display every year. And I took that last year for that one.
Nice. And these are some new arrivals that you have going on.
Yes. I have some mums and some roses. So yeah.
It's so great. And I see you have an events tab. What do you have anything going on?
Some of them are some of the events that I did in person. Last year, I participated in the We All Are Artists show at Butler Arts Center, and it was featuring people that had disabilities, and I had some of my artwork featured. And I also got a chance to participate in Small Business Saturday, where I sold some of my prints and some of my things like that. And my husband, he has a postcard project, so he had a chance to display some of his postcards.
Well, that is so cool. You mentioned that you're a paraeducator. Did I say that? Yes. Paraeducator, yes. And then you're working with students with disabilities?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So what's the most rewarding experience that you have being a paraeducator?
I think the most rewarding experience is that opportunity to be able to give back. I get a chance to retest to students that, and so prior to that, somebody read a test to me all those years ago, and that made all the difference. And I love getting in there and talking about disabilities with them. A lot of my students might say, well, my disability makes me stupid, or I hate having it. And I get that opportunity, a unique perspective to go in and say, oh, you're not stupid because you have a disability. Your brain's wired differently. And I get that chance sometimes to tell them that I have a disability myself, and I know how hard it is. And I get to show them how to advocate for themselves and to give them the resources that they need to be successful. All of them either know or will soon find out, do not ask me to help you with math. I cannot do math to save my life. And sometimes I get that chance to tell them why. And other times I might just say, oh, I'm just not good at that. But I think that shows that adults have things that they struggle with.
Sure.
Nobody's perfect. Everybody has something. And I just love being able to just give back to somebody else.
That is so great. And you said that you're a writer. So tell us a little bit about how do you get your inspiration when you write?
My inspiration through nature. I love quotes, or I'll try to compare things with things that happen in my life with having a disability, and I'll try to put a positive spin, or I'll try to give a comparison that people understand. Sometimes I might compare my disability to a spring flower and the process of how a flower will bloom. I've also talked about just things such as building the house with some of the ideas like scaffolding and how that has helped me in my life. Butterflies are another passion. So sometimes I might talk about the transformation that I go through, that I've went through, that's similar to a butterfly, and what they have as well.
Can you tell a little bit about that?
Sure. The transformation. I can remember whenever I just started out, when a butterfly starts out, they don't become this big, beautiful butterfly. They start out as this, this little seed, and then it goes into it goes into being a caterpillar, and they have to go in their chrysalis and develop. And I even got to see this whenever I had a butterfly kit. We try to do that every year. And you just see this little butterfly that just starts out like this little thing, and it turns into like this little caterpillar. And, it just starts out with a larva and this little thing. And then you get to see it go into a caterpillar. And then it turns into going through its chrysalis and all the different changes that it goes through. And before you know it, it's ready to come out, and it becomes this butterfly that's just flying around. And there's just so much in my life that was similar to that. Just starting out as that small little thing that no one ever thought that I was going to have any potential, and growing and being in that chrysalis, and, being the caterpillar, and just all that development, and then coming out and being a butterfly. And then after I release them, the butterflies will go out and will see, lay that for other people. Then they get that chance to develop other butterflies to lay those. And that's what I get a chance to do when I work with students in the school. I get to now, I've come out of all those different stages, and I get to go and fly and produce for other people a life.
That is so great. Short that you could read.
I could probably, pull something up that I could read there. I have a real short one. I have a short one that I could read that was from last month.
Perfect.
So I have Catching the Bouquet and Finding Love. And this one's about my dreams of being married and trying to catch how I caught a bouquet at somebody's wedding, despite having a lot of the issues that I have. Catching the Bouquet and Finding Love. Catching the Bouquet and Finding Love. I will never forget the time I caught a bouquet at the wedding. The competition was fierce, with many other girls who were cheerleaders in school. I spent many gym classes with some of them. I waited in anticipation for the bride to toss the bouquet. I saw the flowers flying in the air, and I reached out. To my surprise, I caught the bouquet. My learning disability affects my eye-hand coordination, making sports, dancing, driving, and other physical activities difficult. The bride was so excited. She jumped up and down and hugged me. The joy of the moment was squelched when my ex did not attempt to catch the garter during the garter toss. Instead, an older child caught and felt a picture of us together would be more appropriate. My ex would also not dance with me at the event. He said I was a horrible dancer. He took ballroom dance lessons and expected me to dance like a pro. I could not fit in the structure of what he was looking for in a partner. We both were having issues before the event and wanted different things in a relationship. The main issue was he could not accept a partner that had a disability. He told me when we broke up shortly afterwards that I think you could drive if you really wanted to, and have been tired of taking you places. Despite catching the bouquet, I was not the next to be married. I spent a great deal of time at weddings and other events alone. It cut deeply when others would ask, "When are you getting married?" And I wasn't seeing anyone. I seemed to get all the people I didn't want to date. Some people were not interested in dating a person with a disability, and others just were not the right person for me. I was accused of being too picky, and people told me I would spend my life alone. But I did not spend all my time sitting at home crying and wait to live my life. During the single years, I worked on myself. I went on trips, went back to school, and volunteered. I also encountered another string of duds, causing me to surrender being single to God. I prayed that God would send me the right person and would not bring anyone else into my life until it was the one for me. Praying that prayer was one of the scariest things I had ever done. I did not know if I'd meet someone or not, but I knew I could find happiness or fulfillment single or with someone. If you're not happy single, you're not going to be happy in a relationship. I also found out that people with disabilities struggled in relationships. Many people without disabilities struggled in relationships. Many people who were popular in school and looked like they had it all together ended up divorced or in really bad relationships. Managing relationships can be tricky. Our society gives a structure of finding the right person, getting married, and engaged, married in a certain timeline. For many people, that way works for them. But for others, the journey may take longer. My prayer was answered, and I now met my husband unexpectedly. I was volunteering in an art center, and he was playing guitar that night. We found out we had mutual friends and interests, and were even at previous places at the same time. We will be married for 9 years this June. I could not ask for a better husband or dancing partner. He loves, encourages, and supports me. He also accepts my disability and loves me for who I am. I now can see the years spent single showed me how to enjoy life and invest in the lives of others. I am thankful that the relationships did not work out and wish them nothing but the best. We simply were not meant to be together and would have not been happy together. Catching the bouquet did not lead me on a short trip to the altar. Instead, it carried me through a longer journey to meeting my husband, which was worth it in the end.
That is beautiful, Michelle.
Thank you.
That is
Thank you
so
much.
beautiful. Like, makes me want to tear up. It is so beautiful, and God is good.
Yes.
Yes, if we as his followers, we have to be patient, and at our timing, it's his timing.
Exactly. Yep. And if I would have gotten married when I was really young, I don't think it would have worked out for me.
Wow. Now, do you still live in this small town with the bullies?
I do live in this small town. Some of them have moved away, which is fine. And some people I'm still friends with that it didn't work out. And we're good friends and can wish them nothing but the best.
That is so great. That is so great. What advice would you give a younger person that has a learning disability?
Advice that I would give them is that things are going to get better in your life, and to just hang in there and not to give up, and to know what you want and be able to find a way to do it. And I always love to say that success doesn't always come in the package that you expect, but sometimes it comes in something even better.
That's beautiful.
At michellesmission.net.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good. Well, that's wonderful, Michelle. I really appreciate you sharing your story. And yes, go visit her website, make some purchases, and thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's certainly been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode on Reflect Live Podcast.
Next up, Steve E. Fernandez, Saturday, April 20th, 10 o'clock, 10:30 a.m. CST. Register www.reflectlivepodcast.com. Join Michelle, voice behind the Reflect Live podcast, in an exclusive interview with Steve E. Fernandez, the ingenious CEO behind Full Credit Media. With a wealth of experience in directing and producing a diverse range of films and video productions, Stevie specializes in curating cinematic experiences that weave together the threads of your captivating narrative.
Listen on Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, or live stream on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram.
Register now on www.reflectlivepodcast.com. Follow so you don't miss out on new live